This morning. Thanks for coming. Venerable Amy, we are very fortunate to have for today and tomorrow evening. She has been teaching extensively since 1992, emphasizing a practical approach to integrating Tibetan Buddhist philosophy into everyday life. Ordained as a Buddhist nun in June 2000, she spent a great deal of time engaged in meditation retreats, study, and Buddhist center management throughout the world. She has led retreats and pilgrimages to India, Nepal, Bhutan, and will be leading a spring 2020 Trek to Laudo retreat in Mount Everest region of Nepal. More information about Venerable Amy can be found at her website, amymiller.com. And we are so honored to have her here today. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Nicole, and all of the people involved supporting Tuptakunga Center for hosting me and making this possible. Thank you so much. There's so many people. I'll forget everybody to name, so thank you very much. So let's just begin. If you can close your eyes for a moment. And just allow your mind to settle on the breath, just releasing any distractions that are flying through. Slowly allowing your focus to come here into this room. And if you weren't here for the meditation earlier, again, reflect on your purpose for being here. And take a moment, and again, if we were here for the meditation, we can reestablish a motivation. But it is so helpful to orient our consciousness in a good way before we start any activity. So in this tradition, we are focused on maybe showing up at a class. Maybe we learn something of how to wrestle attachment, the difference between love and attachment. And it helps us deal with our mind a bit better. That's great. Helps you be more peaceful, more balanced. We would add in this tradition, could that then help me move along a path to full enlightenment, to becoming a Buddha, which means fully awakened being. The reason we'd like to become a Buddha is then we're completely unlimited. We can perfectly serve all living beings. We can help everybody perfectly. So if that interests you, feel free to fold that into your motivation. Take a moment right now to set a positive intention for our time together, as well as all the activities of the rest of your day. And then please reflect on what you feel, or who you feel, or both, most attached to right now in your life. Are there people you're most attached to? Reflect for a moment on how does that affect you at times? And then, is there stuff you're attached to? How does that affect you? Just have a brief look at these situations. is attachment like for you when you look at these situations? How does it feel in your body? How does it feel in the mind? What are you clear about, like what it is exactly, attachment? What do you think it is? Have a look at that. Please relax and slowly open your eyes. What would you say attachment is to you? How does it a little bit work, manifest in your life? Is it a problem, not a problem? What did you just notice as you were kind of thinking about these situations? Anything pop up for you? You're squeezed?
Oh, yeah.
Squeezed, inside, yeah. Squeeze feeling? And painful feeling.
Constricted.
Things that have meaning to my life.
It's,
Things that have meaning to my life. It feels like there's meaning in some of my.
so if you're attached to something, then it has meaning in your life.
Some of the things that are in, that I'm attached to have meaning in my life.
Have meaning in your life.
Yes.
Mhm. Yes.
I just had a weird feeling. I've never had anything like this before. I felt like I was being lifted up. I was leaving the floor, I was going up in the air. It happened twice. I've never had it before.
Good meditator, I suppose. Wasn't really a formal meditation, but it's reflection. So you're saying attachment is an uplifting feeling for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Attachment is giving your power.
It gives you power.
Giving your power away.
Giving your power away.
That's good.
So that's very different than his thing, isn't it?
Yeah, he's my husband.
I love it. So they're together, living, and they've got two different views. It's uplifting for him, but she's powerless. That's an interesting dynamic. So what else? Yeah.
I found myself thinking about the difference between deep love and attachment, and when where they separate. You know what I mean? To
Yep.
love someone so deeply that in and of itself feels like attachment,
Mm-hmm.
not so much in a negative way.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what? Yes, please.
No, I was thinking there's, for me, different types of attachment. Part of my attachment is where I give service, another part is where it's hard to let go.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So what's the attachment giving service like for you? Can you describe that a little bit?
Oh, it's out of love. It's definitely a more positive.
Okay. So you're saying love is more positive than attachment.
Yeah, but I have that connection, that attachment to want to give service to
Uh-huh. Yeah.
those that I love.
Sure. Which can also be part of our attachment to our identity. You have certain things you want to kind of do in the world. So we want to keep that identity, hoisted up sometimes like that. Sure.
I feel it needs a craving.
The attachment's linked to craving.
In control. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you ever notice anybody related to the craving thing too, that when it gets going, like, don't you just want more of it? Like it somehow keeps, it's like a cycle of, even if it's a person, you want to be with this person, or you want to do your service, I just need more of that. Like if it's feeding my ego, because I say I volunteer here, it becomes a cycle. You need more. You need to feed it. Sometimes in Buddhism, they say attachment is drinking the seawater. Okay, you're drinking salty water. So we know that just makes you more thirsty. Like you have a thirst, drink the seawater, but it's endless. We also are said to be in the desire realm. Tibetan Buddhism has different realms, and we are human beings in that realm, but it's the desire realm. And its nature is attachment, the desire realm. And when I kind of look at my culture around me and myself, my own mind, and I just think, oh yeah, like sometimes I'll notice something I want. Like the mind will say, has an attraction to something. I go, and then I'll be like, oh, the desire realm is here right now. It's taking over, And I kind of laugh with it because it does help me step back a moment to think, if it's a thing, it's going to make me any happier. There's some people we know, and I'll talk about stuff a little later, our stuff, but there's some people I know, and some people, I'm going to be gentle and call them collectors, not hoarders, collectors, okay? We all know and love a lot of collectors. We may be a collector ourselves, where it's very hard to let go of anything or to throw anything away. But I do notice this with some collectors that I know and love. Sometimes I come in and I'm really like, how many fleece jackets do you need? Right? Now that might not be something in Florida, because, but it could be, your workout shoes or and I'd say culture and fashion and people that manufacture things, and Rinpoche used to say that advertisers were the best psychologists. They know exactly how to get you. So be skillful with your mind. One thing is to be skillful with your mind. How much stuff do you need? And if you want to meditate well, one of the requirements for good meditation, it's not a requirement, but it's basically they list some conducive circumstances. If you want to meditate well and achieve calm abiding, where your mind can stay focused on one thing. If you want that, one of the things is being satisfied with what you have. So when we talk about attachment to stuff, being satisfied with what we have, but it also for me relates to people. Being satisfied with what you have. We were talking yesterday about your daughter, and my family's very close, but we're all very different. And so sometimes, one family member will do something that annoys another family member. But some of those traits are, the person could change, but change isn't easy. So I used to be in a mode where I couldn't stand when he did this, and and now I more accept. So I don't have this attachment that he has to be different, which would only made me crazy. And now it's like, that's who he's kind of, and there's a lot of good qualities there. So I'm going to choose to focus on the good qualities, let go of my attachment that he has to be a certain way that fits into my mold of how you're supposed to be, boring, right? And so it's much more peaceful like that. So sometimes we have attachment to different, how these beings, I'll take questions a little later, that how, slowly, how people are supposed to be, how that relates to my life, how I want them in my life, like that. And then it creates tension sometimes between you and other. So let's just look at love and attachment right now. Any basic differences that you think between love and attachment?
Yes.
I think somebody back there mentioned. What would you say? What's a big difference?
Well, one's all-encompassing and one is divisive.
So which is which?
Love is all-encompassing and
All-encompassing?
attachment is divisive.
Okay, but you don't feel that way because you found it's uplifting. So can you define what you feel attachment is and what versus love? Is there a difference for you, or?
No, there isn't.
There isn't a difference. Okay. So you're equating attachment with love. I'm sure there's others here as well, like that. So this is Tibetan Buddhism. I'm just speaking from that perspective. What is love? What do they say love is? Anybody? What do you think love is to you? What would love be to you? Let's analyze that first. Yeah.
To accept someone unconditionally for who they are.
Okay, to accept somebody unconditionally for who they are.
And to want what's best for them.
To want what's best for them. Other feelings you feel? Yeah.
Feeling very strongly about someone or something.
Feeling strongly about someone or something.
It's very possible.
But strongly how? But-
For me?
Yeah.
Painfully, possibly.
Painfully possible. Okay, because this is interesting. You have to really get specific when you really want to analyze something and figure out, because if it's okay in your life and everything's good, continue. But we get hooked. Something changes with love and attachment, and we're like, you know, and it's things like, and I just think mostly with people, I think we're most attached to. So years ago, I didn't live near my parents. I lived on the other side of the country, and I would visit, and I know I'm so blessed that I had loving parents. I have love, and my father's still alive, and our house was always filled with love. Like that's my premise. Like I'm so fortunate to have that in my life, because it supported so much for me, just having that. But when I would come and visit, my mother, whom I know absolutely loved me, no question, I loved her, but something else would manifest, and she would suddenly be like, you're gonna go see your friends? Like, why are you doing that? Like, you know, and somehow we were both like, and I'm like, because they're my friends. But then she's like, what about me? And I'm like, you're my mom. Like, that's great. Like, so you know, so there become this different agendas. Is that love or attachment?
Attachment.
So Tibetan Buddhism might say it's attachment, and here's a big difference. So we want to analyze really. So you say, so for love, somebody says absolutely feeling deeply, you know, but for some people it's totally blissful, and for some people there's a lot of pain. So I might equate the pain more attachment, and the blissful feeling you get, that we do have the feeling of that love is very can be expansive, uniting, unlimited, and those feelings are very blissful, and that might be more equated with love. If we get to the fundamentals of what love is, you've all touched around it, but not totally on it.
I would say this is wish someone the best without self-interest.
Okay, to wish somebody the best without self-interest, also close.
There's no space between subject and object.
No space between subject and object.
I think that love can be a chemical thing in your brain, like oxytocin, and attachment is more the thoughts.
What kind of thoughts? Because we have lots of thoughts, right?
Yeah.
So any specific thoughts that attachment might bring up?
Again, it's just, I mean, I think that you can love and be attached, or you can love and be detached.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yep. I'm mostly trying to be more specific to have you get to know your mind. How does your mind function? Because we get very hooked by attachment in a very deeply negative way at times. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, because we do have somebody in here that feels like it's uplifting. So we have to really, and you have to understand how your mind functions in certain circumstances that cause you suffering, because you can change that. Okay? Anybody? Yes, please.
I think attachment is associated with fear.
Attachment associated with fear.
I maybe haven't felt true love, but I would think that attachment is associated with expectations.
With expectations?
Leave emptiness sometimes.
So attachment associated with expectations. Well, what's love?
I believe I've had glimpses that true love in the Buddhist sense is not dependent upon feelings.
Okay, is not dependent. True love in the Buddhist sense is not dependent upon feelings.
It's not a feeling of.
It's not a feeling of. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's definitely inexpressible.
Inexpressible. Can be. Yeah. Sure.
Cravings.
Love is cravings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes you crave objects or people, you know, and you need
Okay, and you think that's love, okay?
Sometimes love can be partially a craving.
Okay, can be partially a craving, love, yep,
Love for me is in connection.
connection,
It could be temporary.
and it can be temporary, yep.
Wishing someone to be happy.
Bing, she wins. Okay, it's very basic. According to Tibetan Buddhism, thank you, and thank all of you, because you all had great comments, and it really gets us thinking. So let's dissect a little bit. Love is, its most fundamental level, is wanting, wishing someone to be happy. That's it. So you touch on it with wanting the best, but really wanting them to be happy. That's the key, is you want them to be happy. It's how we feel about our kids. You just want your kids to be happy. We love our kids. And that's that wish. You just, whatever they're doing, you want them to be happy. They have frustration in school, and then they have problems with relationships. They get older, then they struggle to make a living, and you're just like, whatever's going down with them, I just want them to be happy. The heart really wide open, and love is an innate quality of the mind, okay? It's related to our Buddha nature, and it's expansive, it's unlimited. I'm talking about true, unconditional love. It's where we all want to be, and it's the thing that heals everything. So when we also have romantic notions about it, it is the thing that solves all the problems. You come back to that. So what happens is our planet and our cultures are going in different directions, unfortunately. Not that people are bad. I believe people are fundamentally good, but we're mixed up. We get mixed up. So what happens is, so attachment in Tibetan Buddhism is about me wanting to be happy. Self-serving. It's about my happiness. That's a fundamental difference. If you really want to analyze, according to this tradition, love and attachment. Attachment is, I want to be happy. So I love you if, I love you when, I love you but. There's always a condition on it. So you have to check your own mind. I'm kind of having this interaction with this dear person I love, but there's a little bit of tension. You have to take your mind and kind of check, what is the tension about? You said, I have an expectation. I have an agenda. I'm feeling pain right now. So am I coming from a loving place?
No.
I need something from you. I want something. I need it to look like this, but you're kind of over here. So it's one thing if you have kids you're raising, younger, teenager, whatever, they're in their 20s and trying to get them into the world, and they have different views, and I'm very close with my nephews and my niece, who are all in their 20s. No, one is 30 now. And some of my friends' kids so sometimes we talk, and sometimes the parents will say to me, you talk to him. He listens to you. You talk to him. But the thing is, I don't want to come out, and also, they tune their parents out, so it's normal. But I clearly have a vision of what I think sometimes, but I don't want to come out of this doctrinal, you need to do, this is what, it's more like hearing what the person's saying. I just want them to be happy, and then we find a kind of tapestry of how to communicate through the wanting them to be happy, that maybe they hear a little bit more, where I am throwing in some things of what I think might help them. But again, it's my perspective. They may disagree. They have to do their own exploration slowly. So can you come from a place of that rather than, here's what I need you to do for me so that I feel okay? That I'll be proud that you're my nephew. Regardless whether you're happy or not. That's attachment. Do you understand the differences? And so keep checking. If you're with people and there's static in the relationship, there's a little bit of a blip, you're not communicating, and you shut down on communication. Some people get silent, some people yell. It's all different. You got to check, do I want them to be happy? Is that where I'm coming from? Or is it really, I need them to do this thing so that I'm happy? So it's a fine line, and they say that attachment, of all the delusions, anger is very obvious that it can be pretty negative and destructive. I think a lot of us are clear on that. Anger creates hostility, fragmentation, alienation, all these other things, coming from annoyance, frustration, irritation, smaller levels. But so they say anger is like when you vomit on your clothes. It's really disgusting and you see it immediately. But attachment, they say, is the oil stain on your clothes. It's more subtle. You can kind of hide it, you know, but it's really hard to get out. Because we often equate it with love. It's often mixed with love. And we've all had that in our lives, where people make us feel guilty because I love you, they'll say. Well, but that's your agenda. You know, it could be my mom wanting me to stay there, never wanted me to go out of the house. I'd be home for 2 weeks. That's her love. I mean, she's my mom. The best thing for moms is to have time with their kids, generally, right, when it goes well. So she didn't have a lot of time, but by constricting me more, it just drove me away, you know, things like that. So because of her need, what she needed. And then once we could talk about it openly and honestly of what our feelings were, laid it out on the table, then we had real communication. So what happens is we hide, we don't communicate well, and we've got, one of the things I mentioned yesterday was meta messages. Meta, like underneath, there's the real story. But I'm gonna cover it over with, you know, you're going to see your friends? With a tone that was like, you know, a dart right in here. I'm like, yes, I'm going to, you know, which never made me feel good. And then I feel guilty. I should have this time with my mom, but then I have no friends. Then, you know, what are you gonna, you know? So we get mixed up in this stuff. So communication, number one, how do we level out love and attachment? How do we sort it? Is can we commit ourselves to trying to communicate better? A lot of us are not good at it. And it's a bit of an art to learn how to communicate. So, you know, it's about communicating compassionately, tactfully, with wisdom, compassion. And it's tricky, and it's very tricky with families. I noticed my moving back to the East Coast some years ago, where I'm from, after being away a while. And when you live a long time in California, some of you are familiar with California, they have such a, what I'll call a PC culture, politically correct culture, and they taught me how to communicate. You know, I'm not perfect in communication, but I learned certain ways that Californians would find as not okay, ways to communicate. And I came back to my family, whom I love, and they're wonderful, right? But I kind of opened this door and was like, you know, wow, nobody communicates well here. This is really, you know. So I couldn't come in and be like, you know, you guys are crap. You don't know what, you know, you're not evolved. You know. No, it was, how do I maneuver so it's all peaceful? And it's really, it's been interesting how it's really shifted in the last few years of just observing and then saying a little something when it was appropriate to try to, you know, have certain people listening to other people. There were people in the family not listening to some people, and the other people felt really resentful, and then they get angry back. And these are family patterns. It's normal. So I think that commitment to ourselves before I speak, is this the right thing to say? Is this the best thing to say? But even before that, am I actively listening to the people I love the most? Because they're the ones we tune out the most. And then you get into problems. So you know this with couples and people that live in households together. We've all been there in this thing, meaning, here is your beloved. And how long have you been married?
60.
60.
Wow.
God bless.
Communication.
You're good communicators, I bet. Fantastic. Can you give us some tips? Really? What would be the main?
Learn how to commit more.
Learn how to commit more.
When you're committed, you're not only, when you're listening, you're not only listening, you're speaking. So you have to allow the speech to stop and listen to what the other person's saying.
There it is. Thank you, so true. You should come and teach here today. but that's the key, because we're so eager to get out what we need to say and express ourselves. Yeah. I have to tell you how I'm feeling. That's important. But that I totally missed what you just said, because I'm so eager to tell you how I'm feeling, because I'm so important. So in commitment in relationships, supercharged. I mean, I know people that have had phenomenal problems in their relationships, so committed to being together, they've sorted it. Because they have a commitment. You know, we made vows together, I want to be with you, I want to have a relationship with you, and they figure it out. It's not easy. And they're not perfect in it either. So they accept, but they stay, and they have good relationships now, after identifying a problem, the communication, and they are committed. So thank you, and so the other thing I noticed with relationships, and I had, you know, I wasn't always a nun, I had relationships, is be careful. So about the listening, here is your beloved speaking to you now. Now you've lived with them for 10 years, 20 years, 60 years, whatever period, but you're very used to them. And they speak. How many times is this the case? This is what you hear. We tune them out, okay? I always hear them speaking and I'm just and then later they say to you, but I told you. And then you go, no you didn't. You weren't listening, of course you didn't hear them. And then, you know, I told you, no you didn't, yes you did, no you didn't, and then big fight happens. And then it becomes, you always do that. You're always like this. I hate you. You're, you know. So listening is huge. It's a huge thing. And this is your favorite person in the world, and you're not listening to them. And then it's very hard on relationships when you show up together as a couple to some event, something, and then there's your partner listening really well to everybody else. You know? And you want to punch them. You're like, what am I, chopped liver? Like, so people start feeling demeaned, and there's different, you know. So this is an essential thing, is respecting all living beings, but can you heighten that respect right now for the person that's closest with you in your household that you love dearly, or in your family, even if you're not living with them? Who is it in my life I'm not really honoring, that I'm not really showing that honor to? Can I step it up a little bit? You know, because that's the love, because I really want them to be happy. So why not show them that? Come from there. So attachment, to go back to attachment, we have this oil stain. An attachment, and please check, because most of our relationships are a mix of love and attachment. It's natural. For ordinary beings, and that means human beings with an afflicted consciousness, meaning we haven't reached enlightenment yet. I'm not laying a trip on us, it's just this is ordinary beings. We basically have a mix, and Lama Yesh used to say it's very, very hard to have relationship, especially intimate, close relationships, without attachment as an ordinary being. But ultimately, if we can move along a path, become more highly realized, take some of these teachings really integrated into our lives, you may get a little space from overwhelming attachment. You may get some space from that. So it's a process. It's a process. The beginning is I have to notice when I'm laying a trip on somebody out of attachment because it's my own agenda, it's what I need, or when I'm really open-hearted, expansive, just want them to be happy, and I can support them in that way. So you're going to have a mix, mostly. But if you get into pain, which a couple of you mentioned where you feel pain, is check. You know, what is the mind state? What is your mind state? And what is it you want from this other person? You know, is there something I need from the other person I want? So that's a little bit more in the attachment pool. Can I somehow see, does that really benefit, or can I express that to them clearly and explain and get some feedback from them and hear where they're coming from so that I can move more into where I just want them to be happy and we operate from there? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. It's not easy. I know it's not easy. We try that. So let me just go a little bit further. I'll take some questions too. So another thing we want to understand is, and I want to bring a little bit of emptiness into this, because this is what cuts all the delusions, our view of reality. As ordinary beings, we have a mistaken view. And I would say we misknow, K-N-O-W, we misknow, we misunderstand. Why do we misunderstand? Only due to previous moments or imprints in our mind, in our consciousness, of moments of confusion. Previous moments that I misknow only creates it. So it's habit. Okay? So with emptiness, we have to understand what this person is that we're so attached to and attracted to. And what happens is if you see this person, and you may see them every day, but here they are now, we want to analyze a little bit, because attachment just rushes out, grabs a hold, mine, without much thought of what's really happening. But emptiness says you have information out there. And I'll even break it down to, if it's a person, I've got an oblong, fleshy thing, the head. It's got some material here, for some people, not all people. And then there's a longer kind of rectangular thing, and it's got 4 appendages. And usually the torso, the rectangular part, is usually covered in some kind of material. So that's your person. Bare bones, facts, information, data coming into your sense consciousness. Okay? And in this case, you live with person. So maybe through my eye, sense consciousness, I see them. My ear, I hear them. And they're walking towards me right now. But I have this, like, you know, could be my kid, my husband, my wife, you know. And then you see them, and then your little bit of those self-agendas get operated. Oh yeah, I needed to tell him to do this the next time I saw him. And I need to make sure, oh, he's wearing that? It's, you know, you have all these little things going on in your very sophisticated computer of your mind. So emptiness says, what's going on if I'm attracted to the person as they're coming toward me? At that moment, I have karmic imprints, seeds, planted in my consciousness, in my mind. How did they get there? From previous activities I have done with my body, speech, and mind. And they ripen in different ways. And right now, I happen to have a positive seed ripening. Something positive I did in the past. That imprint is now ripening. Positive imprints ripen in your happiness. Negative deeds you do will ripen in your suffering. So if you suddenly see the person and you have a happy thought, okay, great, that's really nice. But let's see them for what they are. But what we do is we have a happy thought, and the next moment, because we misunderstand the nature of reality, we don't see things clearly, I start projecting, vomiting a projected fantasy onto them, as well as my whole agenda. Oh, I need him to take the trash out. He never takes the trash out on time. He didn't finish the work in the thing. He's flunking out of college. I hate when she wears that shirt. Her hair looks really funny. That, you know, we start, you know, which all comes from the parts of me that aren't fixed, that are mistaken. It's not a, you know, I'm not laying a problem on me. I'm just saying if I can identify, acknowledge it for what it is, maybe I can keep my mouth closed to get past the delusions. You can just watch them. It's not judgment. It's not like, oh, I'm so bad to have this thought about them. No, I'm just like, whoa, breathe. Take a breath. Take another breath if you need it, so that when I actually engage with this person, I'm back in my love camp over here, where, oh, okay, all that garbage just went on, and there is some stuff around that I need to do something about in relation to this person, but I really want them to be happy. Now I'm going to open my mouth and greet them. So again, this is about, we have to start watching our minds to support this happening. In the beginning, we fall down, make lots of mistakes, but you try your best. But do you see the difference? Because you do come loaded sometimes when you see somebody. You come home from this, and there's your husband, and the kitchen's a mess or something, and you know, and people respond much better when you're friendlier, warmer tone, even with humor. Yeah. An example I give, and this is kind of typical, when my sister lives in England. She has 2 boys. She was a single parent from when they were the age of like 9 and 10, I think, or 10 and 11, something like that. And her husband died. So I was over there a lot helping her. And kids at that age, boys, you know, they're into their computer games, and you know, and they basically tuned her out. Like, all she'd have to say is pick up your books, never listen to her, and it was really hard time for her and for the family. So she would try to enlist me as the disciplinarian. And I was the fun aunt, so I didn't want that role, but I kind of mucked my way through it at times, you know, totally messing up. But she'd say, like, get him down here to do the dishes now. Like, she'd be really angry. She had already screamed at him 3 times. Nothing. No word. You know, she used to start, and she used to sometimes say, she'd yell up the steps, like, acknowledge. You know, then you hear this, like, yes, you know. So she says to me, you go up there and get him down here now. Like, she's totally furious. You know, the veins in her neck are popping out. So I'm like, so I go up there, and I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm going to, you know, all I'm going to say is you guys need to go down and do the dishes, or you need to, and he's in front of the computer terminal. I go up, and so I kind of snuck up quietly, thinking, like, what am I going to say? You know, I don't want to come out sounding, because we sound alike. I don't want to sound like her. Then he'll just tune me out, and I'll lose my status as the fun end, right? So I get up the steps, and the computer thing is around a little nook. You have to turn. So he didn't see me till the very last moment. Then he sees me, and I turn, and he's immediately like he thinks I'm going to yell at him. So he's prepared for that, okay? And I could have come out of there because I was annoyed even having to be in the middle of this. Like, why don't you listen to your mother? But he's like a 12-year-old boy. So instead what I did was I just looked at him, and at the moment it sees me to start tickling him. He's not prepared for that because I love him. I want him to be happy, right? So I start tickling him, and I said, as I'm tickling, he's laughing now. He's really laughing, and we have connection. And he says to me, and I said to him, you know, you're supposed to be doing the dishes now. Could you please go down and do them? So, you know, like made a joke about it. He started laughing. And I just finished that, and I just went back to stairs. I didn't wait for him. I just was like, done. 10 minutes later, he came down, did all the dishes. And so can we surprise somebody? Because the people we're closest with are expecting, they know what we're going to say already. And they know the tone. And they can look at you across the kitchen and know exactly what's going down, and you don't really want to hear it in that space. Can we surprise people, those closest to us, once in a while? It takes creativity on your part. Like, you have to think for a moment, and you might be in your room, you might be driving home from something, and be furious at this person. They called, and they this, and they forgot the milk, or they didn't do the thing, and you're furious about whatever mess up happened. Analyze. Slowly analyze it so you can let it go and be in a better space when you, now you can discuss it with them if there's a problem. You discuss, but you're discussing from a gentle, warm-hearted, open space. They might know you're annoyed, but it's a very different thing of you come in furious and you're just furious like that. So if you can try to keep the channels open. I also know relationships where somebody's coping mechanism is to shut down and be silent. For 3 days? Is it helpful? So I do know people that do that, and I find it really manipulative. You know, that the person who's silent is like holding all the power and the control, and the other person's tiptoeing around, and you know, it's one thing to say to somebody, right, you know, I need some space right now. I can't speak to you right now. Just say, and that's, you know, but you're going to hold that for 3 days? It's such a nasty place of the heart. You're not happy, they're not happy, no communication. So even if that is your thing, you need space and time, absolutely. And the other person should honor that. But maybe, and sometimes I know couples that have a little discussion of, okay, but can we make sure we sort it before we go to bed tonight? And the other person might say, I don't know if I'll be ready. Okay, but at least you're acknowledging, but I will work on it for tomorrow. I promise I will be open tomorrow to talking about it. Okay, there's some communication about it. So I think different ways we try to contribute and move into the space of love. Okay, so we want to analyze this person coming through. I'm having a nice karmic seed arising, liking them, but I don't need to over-project onto them. I want to see them for what they are. Because it's interesting, based on emptiness, there's no inherently existing person there. You do not have an inherently existing child or partner. They don't exist that way. They exist, they come into existence dependent on causes and conditions. Their parents wanted to have a kid. They come into existence dependent on their parts, which is body and mind. That's what we depend on. And they come into existence, according to the highest school, Tibetan Buddhism, of based on dependent on my mind taking in some information, some data, okay? And then my mind labels on that data, my kid, my partner. And then they arise coming into dependence. Okay? But not the way we plant on them, like mine forever, and they will live forever, and my kid's gonna stay and move in next to me and do all the things I want them to do and load it up. No, there's this person there and they have their own situation to live through. You give them the best values you can. You have to let go at some point. We never listened to our parents, did we? So why do you expect your kids are going to listen and do everything you want them to do? So you set yourself up for something that's not based in reality, and it makes you suffer. Makes you suffer. And then the other problem is if you have kids, because that's who we're most attached to. If you have kids, I know that you went to that Harvard of parenting school, correct? As all the parents went, right? So your parenting school was your parents. Maybe some friends' parents that you saw. There's no parenting school. And this is such a valuable thing to do, is raising children, even if they're teenagers, even if they're in their 20s, right? And there's no school for you to go to get it right. You muddle along, so give yourself a break. You're going to make mistakes, you're going to say the wrong thing, but again, am I wishing them to be happy? Am I coming from that space, or am I really wrapped up right now in my agenda, my identity, saving face? You know, I think it was a little bit harder for my mom when I got ordained, that just, you know, she didn't mind me being a nun, she wanted me to have hair. She was attached to my hair. That was another problem. She said that. I don't mind you being a nun now, but can't you be a nun with hair? You know, and sometimes it was a little bit of how it was reflected with her friends. Like, they didn't really understand in the beginning. So they didn't understand why I wasn't married at the age of 40. Like, is she a lesbian? That was one. You know, they weren't sure what was, because they had a certain mold that I thought I was going to be, and things broke out. So I think that was hard for my mother until some years later, after I got ordained, I came in from California to visit, and my parents, we were a very musical family. So we used to go to hear the Philadelphia Orchestra a lot. We were kids growing up, and so they had tickets to a concert. They said, "You want to come?" Well, you know, and there we were. And we love those concerts. I love to hear orchestra music and live, and so we went there, and a woman my mother had kind of known, that I knew she kind of looked up to this woman. Suddenly, before the concert, comes over to me, and I didn't really know this woman, but she comes over to me, and the woman says, "Oh, are you a Buddhist nun?" And I said, "Yes." And I was dressed, you know. I said, "Yes," and the woman starts going through, rattling down where she sits at a meditation center she goes to in the Zen tradition, and we engage in this like 20-minute conversation. And my mother's right there, like, she meditates? like, it was a whole new thing, and suddenly it was very trendy. And suddenly, is my daughter. Is a Buddhist nun. She's met the Dalai Lama. She knows Richard Gere, my daughter. Like, it was so, you know, so, like, you have to let people have some of their, like, I knew that was important for my mother, but I was also happy that then we could connect on that, on those kind of things. That, you know, something, you know, and I mentioned so funny, I told this before, the Richard Gere connection. He's a, you know, dear Buddhist brother of ours, and a nice man, and he had a house, maybe he still does, in upstate New York. So when I got ordained, one of my very close teachers was staying at the house and getting some medical treatment, very close teacher also of Richard's. And so I wanted to see the teacher. I knew his attendance. I phoned them, and they're like, why don't you come up and have lunch with us, spend the afternoon. And it was nice weather, and my parents were very happy to do the drive. But first I said, I said to my parents, I'll check. So I said, my father and mother are there, and I said, they want us to come, we'll have lunch. And my mother was always a little wary of the Buddhist stuff. She met many lamas, but she was always a little scared. My father was always game, like, let's go. And so then she said to me, my father goes, we can go. And my mother said, well, what are they going to do with us there? Is there a program? Or she wanted to know, she was a little, so then I just turned to her, I knew exactly how to get her, and I said, well, He's staying at Richard Gere's house. She looked at my father and she said, we're going. So it's nice to analyze correctly. We have to analyze properly. Who is this person walking to? Look at all the glee I'm having, you know, but is it based in reality? As Lama would say, are you touching reality? You know, because what happens is all my glee is all about me again, you know. And then as soon as they'll come up and say, oh, I'm going out this afternoon and I thought they were going to be around, then I get unhappy. Because again, it's my agenda. So can I kind of say to them, hey, what are you doing today? Oh, you have some plans the afternoon? Are you free this evening? I'd love to get together and do this. Or you know what, is there any chance you could change the plans because I've got something tonight, but I really want to do this thing with you this afternoon? And if they say no, okay, no. They're going out, they're doing, you know, it just happens. But at least you put it out there and ask for what you wanted with clear reason, but without twisting the knife in. Oh, you're going? Okay. It's a different tone, right? You know, it's the old, like, you know, the lights burned out, I'll sit here in the dark, okay, all right. So we have to be careful when we're motoring in to push the button that irritates them, or can I, you know, because they'll end up, probably the people you want, spending more time with you because you're more pleasant as well. And there isn't this pull on you of constant, like, you're never home. What are you doing? Who are you with now? What are you doing? Why do you want to be here with me? Right? And it just sends them away. Love and attachment. So we have to always consider, am I coming from the place of wishing the other to be happy? And again, it's going to be mixed a lot of the time. So can I acknowledge when it goes into the attachment pool and suddenly I start getting a little tight and they're going to feel the energy? Is it coming out of my voice when I say something to them? Can I just take a breath and use mindfulness to just notice what's going on? I've got an agenda here, okay. Can I just take a couple breaths and let it go? Returning myself back to the space where I really love them. Unconditional love, I just want them to be happy. That possible? So with the lofty notion, do you know, can you see there's a difference between the love and attachment of what I'm talking about now? Like you might be talking about love, I find uplifting, totally uplifting. But occasionally do you get a bit mired in something? Yes, sometimes that comes along, a little different expression. And I'll take some questions in a moment, but I want to also mention stuff, our stuff. Anybody have any attachment to stuff? No. Right? Chocolate. Chocolate's another thing with food. Sure. Chocolate and food. So again, it's just carrying it on the analysis. Somebody offers you a box of chocolate, and if you're a chocoholic, I've seen people shake a little when they get really. I grew up with two chocoholics, so I've seen that kind of like, you know, it's coming. Okay, so you get excited. Somebody's taking you out to your favorite restaurant, or you're going to have your beach day, or, you know, are you touching reality? This would be really fun. I'm excited. I'm happy to go with you. Or wow, box of those chocolates? Wow. Yeah. Well, if you like them, I bet there's other people that like them. I find sweets are much more fun to eat when I share them with others. Desserts as well. You know, you end up eating a lot of it yourself, and then later you're like, I don't feel so good right now. So it's a little self-serving like that, but it's also fun because other people enjoy. And when you take the lid off and you offer, and it makes people happy. It's so easy, chocolate. But then we get encumbered with other stuff that we have, and some of you may be downsizing, maybe you're not yet. Some of you may have that closet that needs cleaning out, or the drawer. I don't know if it's an attic or the fateful storage room that you're paying $200 a month for. It's amazing how much stuff we have. So recently my niece and I watched a couple episodes of, I'm sure some of you, I read the book a couple years ago, Marie Kondo. Anybody into that? Okay. Marie Kondo is a Japanese woman, and she wrote a book a few years ago called something about, I don't know, the Japanese art of tidying up.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's on TV. There's just some episodes. So my niece got into this and we watched a couple, and it's quite practical. And for a lot of people cleaning out, I think it's quite helpful how she asked you to do it. It does require a little bit of time, but so does cleaning out. And So when I read the book, and I think the visual on TV is easier to see, you know, her folding mechanisms, if those of you were, I wasn't quite sure how to fold things, but anyway, when I read the book, I did know how to fold one, like an underwear drawer. It's transformed my underwear drawer. Seriously. To having too much stuff that didn't fit in the drawer. I couldn't see it all. I didn't know what was in there. Now I have one drawer. It's wonderful. I see everything. It's clear, it's easy. And it's easy because everything has a space. So when I put something back in, it goes right, there's a space for it. So tools like that could be easy when you're dealing with your stuff. Is your stuff helping you, supporting your identity? Some people feel that way. But for a lot of people, it's weighing them down, and it's causing problems in their relationships. And she goes through this in some of the episodes. But I just know people around me that are, you know, one spouse is a hoarder, the other's not, and they've had tension for like 20 years in the relationship. So had they run the clocks back 20 years or 10 years, they could have spent a week, would have taken about a week, or taken a few weekends, committed a few weekends, and we're gonna go through these rooms, and it would have been done. And then everything would have a place, and they would have felt a lot later, but you always are kind of like, I don't have the time. I don't really have the time yet, I don't have the time, you know. So sometimes I've mentioned to people, can you do a box a week? Can you do a box a week and break it down? She doesn't do it that way. And I find her way, I think, is more effective. So what she says is she starts with clothes. Do any of you have too many clothes? Do any of you think you don't have too many clothes? Okay. What she asks you to do, okay, all of your clothes in your entire apartment or house all come out at the same time onto the bed or onto the floor, onto a room that will accommodate them, all at the same time. And what happens is, yes, it's scary, because when you see it, when you first have a closet, it's one thing, but when all your clothes are there together, it's a mound of too much stuff. Like immediately you're like, I have that many clothes? You kidding? And then you're like, okay, so it motivates you to start to get rid of. So whatever tricks you can add, I find it really helpful. And my niece already at a young age has gotten in her mind, like, I don't want to accumulate, and then I have to be stuck in this situation like these people. She's already getting it at that age. A lot of times in your late 20s, you're accumulating. It's the first time you're an adult, you're getting your first apartment, and suddenly, like, I need another table, and oh, I need another thing over there, I want to get another lamp for that, and suddenly, you know, and that's what people do, and so you feel like we are supposed to do this. There's nothing wrong with having a big house or, you know, lovely house or something, but it's a matter of how does it weigh in your mind. And I do know some people with large houses, very wealthy, not attached to much of it at all. Doesn't weigh in they're like, I enjoy this, it's great, but where I know other people living in small spaces, too much stuff, not able to work, whatever, and it's on their mind all the time. I've got too much stuff, I can't move, I can't walk, I can't find anything. Are you spending a lot of time looking for stuff? That's tiring. That's tiring. So it's interesting just to have an honest assessment with your stuff, and I would say get to some of the stuff sooner, the cleaning out sooner or later, because you'll feel so much better. You feel so much lighter. Now, I know that if people are collectors, and I'll even use the H word, hoarders, that's almost more of a psychological situation. So if you want to talk to somebody about it, you know, you might need more professional help to kind of have you adjust why you feel you can't throw anything away. Why that little piece of paper is so essential to you. Again, analyze what is so important about having this. Now we have cameras, take photos of everything. And so somebody close to me that kind of falls into the hoarding camp has gotten to a point where he realizes it's too much. So now when there's stuff I'm finding in the house of his or somebody else finds, and he's like, take a picture, as long as I have a picture of it. Like he's reached the point where he realizes, and that's good. So it's nice to have the picture, the memento, like that. But maybe try to get some support in doing it. And you can invest your family and say, I really want to do this, but I'm struggling. Get help like that, because you will feel so much lighter. And attachment to stuff when we're dying, you can't take it with you, as they say. And I have seen people like dying, like clutching on, not to an actual thing, but they won't, you know, I'm not giving him the house, she's not getting the pearl, I'm not, you know, and you don't need to be thinking about that stuff when you're dying. But I have seen people, you know, it's a shame. So, helpful? Understand a little bit. So be gentle with yourself in this process and really work on cultivating that love is a big open heart. And it doesn't have limits, and it grows, it's expansive. So that's how we want to feel about our loved ones. I'd love to get them in that space. And people love to be around people that unconditionally love when they are just love. People feel that, and they always want to be near those people. So you want your kids to be near you, and you want to have a lot of friends and all this. Tap into that. Ever-flowing, never-ending, spacious, harmonious. I mean, it really is what heals the planet. And then just our everyday interactions with people. I can't say enough about this. I was just thinking, a friend of mine, bless you, has problems with a neighbor. There's a new neighbor that moved in. So, and I got a new neighbor about a year ago, next door to my dad's house. And I'd had the other neighbor, actually the other neighbors, I may try to see them Monday. They live down here part of the time now, but they live in North Carolina. And they were wonderful neighbors for years. So my friend in an apartment has a problem with the neighbor, too loud through the wall and all this. So she immediately started with attacking. Like, but she's never met the neighbor. So I said, wait a minute, you haven't met them yet. Don't go there the first time you meet them. Don't go to the negative, like immediately, because then they're always going to have that first impression of you as like, oh, that was the neighbor who was yelling at me about the music, or, oh yeah, what a drag. So I said, maybe you first, so start that gentle approach to make a new friend. Let go the music through the walls for now. Let it go, because you're hoping to live next door to them for a while, and you meet them. Hi. Oh, hi, how you doing? And then you start a relationship, a positive relationship with them. Every time you see them for a while, it's always, hi, how's it going? How's your day? Pauses. So then they see you, and they start seeing you, and they like you when they see you, because you're always positive to them. You're asking them how they're doing, and maybe you're helping them. Let me know if you ever need anything, if you run out of eggs. I'm next door. And that goes on maybe a month. Maybe you don't see them much, but you got to let it go for a few times, and now you're friends. You may not see them much, but you've got a relationship, a positive relationship. Now you can say, would it be possible at some point to just, maybe after 10, to just lower the music a little bit? I actually catch, I don't know if you're aware, but I do hear right through the wall, and, are they more spacious to hear that? You bet. So we just get skillful in how you want to deal with people that, I mentioned many driving exercises, and I've seen people do really what kind of idiotic, dangerous things on the road. I don't think people intend mostly, but you see that, and then you want to give them the finger. It's easy in the car, you just, you're all detached that way. But what if you see somebody struggling, and they come up, and then they get in the, and I've had people where I pulled up next to them, and you looked, and I look sometimes to make sure they're okay, but they look, and they're expecting kind of, but I looked, and I'm kind of like, hi, it's okay. We're all in it together, getting down the highway. And it's just such a relief. So again, the meditation we were doing this morning, those of you here, if you have a clear mountain lake that is like your mind, bubbles come up, which are thoughts, experiences, delusions, whatever, and they make ripples on the surface. What kind of ripple do you want to go out from you? If you want a really agitated space going out there to everybody, it will repel everybody. But it doesn't make more pleasant on the planet. Or can I have a nice, gentle approach that goes out there? Gentle vibration that goes out there. More loving. More loving. Questions?
I started about 40 years ago when I would get a new neighbor. I would just make a bunch of cookies and wrap it up really pretty and put a bow on it and say, welcome to the neighborhood. So I never ever had any issues with neighbors ever. And I've done that wherever I've lived.
I think it's great, because I know my new neighbors moved in, and I went and I gave them a pie, and they're a lovely family. And And so we, and when I leave to teach, sometimes I have perishable food in my refrigerator. So I give it to my neighbors. They're delighted to have, they're delighted to have it. And then I was away and it snowed and they shoveled my walk. Like, this is how it works. And it's not like tit for tat. It's not like anybody's keeping track. It's just like, if they need help, I'm gonna help them. Sometimes I need help, they help me. We're all in it together. We have a very close neighborhood. I'm very fortunate that way right now where I'm living. But we can do that with anywhere, any place on the planet, we can do it. It's just a choice where some people are very much into mine. It's my car, my driveway, my washing machine. The suburbs a little bit kind of move that out there, but now I think it's changing in some suburban areas where people are, more community oriented like that. Yes, Sean?
I also find that if you're attached to a certain item or you find something you're passionate about, it's good to give that away to someone.
That can be helpful to cut attachment.
And that act of giving also generates that internal more.
Yeah, very much so. Because I have had stuff I was really attached. I had this favorite sweater I traveled with in India all the time. I had it for years. I bought it for 50 cents at a flea market, but it was perfect. It was the way you could wash it, the way it fit over everything when I was a layperson. And I was just so attached, and I gave it to this Indian tea vendor one winter, and it was cold, and I was like, and then it was fun to see him wear it, and it is helpful. Some people teach their kids at their birthdays, or Christmas, or holidays, when kids get a lot of presents. My siblings did this with their kids, is they had to give one toy to charity, or they had to give some money and allocate. So they learned that it's not all just for them, even though they loved getting the stuff, that part of it had to be offered because there were kids that didn't get anything. So the kids, grow up, especially, I see my sister's kids who still have that, they're very into social service because she was always taking the marches and explaining an issue. And so there's ways you can impart things on other people, and some people influence new relationships they get into and say to somebody, do you want to meet? I did this with my last boyfriend before I was ordained, as I was already into the Dharma. He was new. So for me, if it was a Saturday night and they were teaching somewhere, that was my social activity. So, and I would say to him, do you want to go to this teaching and then we can go out to dinner? And he was always like, okay, that sounds good. So it's a way you could introduce somebody to something that you feel might help them or benefit them, like that. Yes?
So my question, all right, so attachment with a human is different from an attachment with a pet versus attachment with an object.
I think it's all the same. I don't think it's different.
Because we're looking at an agenda, so I guess you just have different agendas.
Yep.
Basically.
Because we have huge attachment to pets.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So, but I'd say it's very similar with our kids and even with stuff. People have incredible emotional attachment to some stuff. So I think it's the same device of, it identifies me, it makes me happy. It's all about my experience, it makes me happy.
So I guess.
That's what I'm saying the difference is, where love is more wanting the other to be happy.
True. I guess what I'm thinking is when you have an attachment so strong and like a person or a pet, and that person or pet passes away.
Yeah.
Sometimes people grieve more for the pet than for the human. So is that a different relationship, a different attachment?
I don't think it's so much of a different attachment, and it doesn't mean that you don't grieve when you lose somebody and that you're not sad. Love is like that. It's not saying that you shouldn't. There is a grieving process, I think, very healthy to go through when you lose a loved one, a pet or a person. And it can't be rushed and things like that, but it's important to know that the grief ends. There is an end to the grief, so you're not always identified. Some people hang on if they lose a kid. It's the worst thing to lose, and that's the rest of their lives. They're always a victim. Always, they never quite pass through the grief to be, more positive, again, like that, or to help others. So I think it's the same kind of mindset of clutching, grasping, craving. You want them to be there. And so but the grief is a normal process. That's not a problem. That's not necessarily only about attachment. Things. I think it's a healing process to let yourself miss the person. Why do we miss pets more or seem to miss pets more than humans. You know, pets don't do as many they can't speak the way humans can say some really irritating things. And you have more history with the humans, and you've got more of an intricate relationship. Pets, especially if it's a dog, it's just unconditional love generally, for most dogs. Not all, but most. Cats, you know, cats have staff, right? You are their staff. Cats are a different animal, but cats as well are people have incredible relationships with cats. So it's more of just that you've got history with the person more that is colored. Some of it's good, some of it's irritating. So sometimes you kind of go, oh. So I think it's just normal. I don't think it's that you're less attached or that I'm a bad person because I don't miss him as much. And our human relationships are complicated sometimes, multifaceted, right?
Thank you.
All right. Please.
I'm wondering when you say I want them to be happy, what that means, because I think that for us, it seems like from your examples, it means feeling that we are allowed to be who we are, feeling deeply acknowledged, having our needs acknowledged, and that's where the communication piece comes in. But in Buddhism, I believe that it has to do with whatever moves the person closer to liberation. I think, I don't know. So I think, you know, especially when parenting, when we talk about parenting, what's happiness for the child is not something you are going to allow in an unrestricted way as a parent.
Right.
So what does that mean when you say that love is wanting somebody to be happy?
Yes, so if you're raising young kids, you have to set up some boundaries as you're helping them learn certain values. That's normal that's good parenting. So it's not like you're just gonna, oh, you wanna run in the street and play, like, you have to be practical. So, and then there's a level, I don't know what age they say, where those values are kind of set, and there's not a whole lot more you can do at that point. And they also have their own karma.
Sure.
Unfolding these seeds in their consciousness that are playing out. Do you have kids?
I have an 11-year-old boy, and for him, the deepest unhappiness is having the video games restricted. You know?
Yep, that's an 11-year-old boy's realm. That's his space. But the thing is, sometimes that needs to happen for you to impart to him that this other stuff has to happen. If you're not doing your homework, or you're flunking out of this, or you're not doing your chores, or you know, that there's he learns a balance in life. So that's normal for an 11-year-old boy, that you have to set, boom. So you want him to be happy, and you're doing it because you want him to be happy. Playing video games all day is going to make his brain like jello, you know, along other imprints as video games leave if they're violent. I'm amazed.
Right, but nowadays it's a social experience because they all meet in these virtual worlds, and so you're up against a lot. I'm sure a lot of parents have this issue.
Yep.
So then, at what point do we see happiness as in the more Buddhist way? You know, like.
I would think just again showing up for them again and again, that you're there. You're a solid, positive example for them. I think you have to set some boundaries. And maybe it's also, I know parents are struggling with this due to technology and the video games, but my sister and brother went through this as well, is certain activities that are built in that are part of the week, meaning a walk outside in nature.
Sure.
Like she often took her kids out, my sister, and you know, it was a constant, it's like, and they would fight. No, we went, and she's like, no, we're doing the walk, and when you come back, then you can have a half an hour. Like, so you set up things, but they start to get this feeling of, in nature, and usually when they're out in nature, and boys, like, they pick up sticks, and that it's fun. They're an explorer, and they do their stuff, and they start having some familiarity with that as well, and maybe you bring one of their friends along, but it's hard with technology. It's just something that for us, TV was limited, so TV was our drug. I was that generation, and my parents had very clear boundaries of when we could watch TV. It was brutal. I thought it was brutal. We couldn't watch during the school year. It depended on your grades. Depended totally on your grades. There was no watching during the school year unless it was a holiday or a weekend. And I just thought it was criminal, because all my friends were talking about the shows, and I couldn't watch them until they were reruns, and I hated my parents for that. And later in life, I thanked them for that and said, that was really smart. And so kids are going to push against you. That's their job. That's what they're exploring to figure out. So again, you do the best you can, and you're going to mess up sometimes, and he's going to say, I hate you, and that's kind of par for the course. And you just keep on you do your best, right? Not easy. Yes?
Can you talk about attachment to grudges and a fight that you have or a negative person? How do you work through, going away from that attachment?
Yep. So, grudges, think about it when you're holding a grudge. Some people don't, but people that do, can you just take a moment to think about when you're holding a grudge in your mind? You can even close your eyes for a moment and just think about that mindset. Somebody, let's say, wronged you. They did something to harm you, or it could be a little thing. They never listened to you. They said something disrespectful to you in public about you. And you haven't had a chance to discuss it with them. And every time you see them, how does it feel? If you haven't let it go. So please open your eyes. How's the grudge for those of you that get stuck in grudges? What does it feel like? Any comments?
I was just reading about grudges, and they said that if you think of the thing that that person did to you, that hurt you, was like an arrow, but then, tell me if I got this right, but then you take the arrow, and you make it into a grudge, and you keep stabbing yourself with it, and suffering, and stabbing, and suffering, and stabbing. But, so it did that thing, but you kind of keeping it alive with stabbing yourself with it.
Uh-huh. You feel that way with grudges yourself?
Yeah,
But
there's two ways I deal with grudges. There's that one, or is one I just shut down, which is really a pissy, cowardice way to do it, just shut down and be cold and move away. I think of myself as someone who doesn't hold grudges. I was always proud of myself that I could forgive and let go and everything. And I still do a lot of the time. But there's certain times in a relationship it comes to the point where I've taken it and taken it and taken it, and then a grudge. So I know it's not a happy place to be. It's not a positive, kind of warm, loving place to be. And usually I'm deluded when I think, like a month will go by and go, what the heck?
yeah, it still pops up in things. Other people, they're feeling, how does it feel for you, holding the grudge? Poisonous, yeah. It's like a real, and like it's good what you're saying about the arrows. I mean, it feels harmful. And for me, it feels very heavy. Heavy, leaden kind of heart, like. Not a major grudge holder, but occasionally something will come up. I'll be like, oh God, the last time I saw that person, and so it does keep you prisoner. It does keep you prisoner. So the more we're aware of that, where we do a little reflection on, if I hold this grudge and and is there a way I can clear it? Do I need to have a conversation with the person? Can I do that? Sometimes it's not possible. Can I do it? People have people that abuse them as a child, like a parent abused you as a child, and the parent died. You're much older now. So the people that haven't found a way to forgive, and you can do it even if somebody's died, you could still visualize them in front of you. Say what you need to say, tell your story, but with an intention that it's going to clear to let it go. Now what will happen with huge wrongs sometimes, is you have to forgive again. It comes back up. It's a process. But to work on that space is a big space of mind. It's not saying that you're condoning the behavior and it's okay. It's just, I got to tell my story. That's an important part of it. Is here's my view of what happened. And I'm choosing to forgive you. And then you have a choice. And Archbishop Desmond Tutu has a beautiful book on forgiveness. And he mentions this 4-step or 3-step process. And he says, and then you have a choice after you forgive to either renew the relationship with the person and have a relationship with them that you can build on trust but sometimes you might choose, it's so toxic. I do forgive you, but I'm not really going to have anything. I don't need to be in contact with you at this point. Whether you say it to them or not, you can choose in your mind. It's perfectly okay, as long as you're still not holding But again, you might wake up the next morning and realize, okay, something's still there, I need to do the process again. No problem. No problem. Is that helpful? And there was a second part to the question you were saying about grudges, and then
No, just like a process. Like, what is the process of working?
Yeah.
Letting go of that attachment.
That's
you
what I would.
replay the story to try to get more attached. You like, and then you add details.
That's right. So this is another thing that we do, is we do analytical meditation, but in the wrong way. Okay? So analytical meditation in our tradition is a good type of meditation, provided it's focused in the right way. But what we do is somebody wrongs you, and somebody said this to you, and somebody, whatever happened, family, work, doesn't matter. And then I go home and I replay it in my mind. So I analyze, but I add details. And now the person looks really ugly, and I hate that shirt that they wear, and they're always doing this. I create a huge epic saga, okay, that isn't entirely true, because unless I've had a direct perception of emptiness, my story is always wrong. Okay? It has a valid perspective, but it's not the whole story. But I'm invested in it like it is. Like it's all accurate what I'm saying, and often our stories are wrong. So better to let the mind sit at ease instead of getting into all these details and wasting time. Acknowledge how you're feeling, what's happened. We also have to identify karma as a share in it. If somebody harms you, Tibetan Buddhism says it's a result of previous actions I have done that are in my mind stream. The cause has to be there for the result to show. For someone to harm me, there had to be a cause for it that I created. I'm not laying a trip on myself. I'm just being realistic. That's how karma works. Karma's saying whatever you do, think, and say, so all the activities of your body, speech, and mind leave an imprint in your consciousness. Those imprints will come to fruition at some point. They will ripen. The positive imprints you make ripen in happiness for you. The negative imprints you make ripen in suffering for you. Now I'm suffering. Somebody said a rude thing to me. Somebody did this to me. So, now I'm suffering. If we can acknowledge karma, not with blame. It's not that I'm just acknowledging this is a fact, this is a law of what is, so I don't want to engage negatively anymore in this way, in this direction with this person. Why? Because it's going to create more negativity for me in the future. So it doesn't mean you can't communicate clearly with them and explain that this really hurt my kid, or and sometimes I might say, wait, who was I with? Somebody recently I just did this with, and I said to them, is it possible, they were having a conflict with somebody, and I said, instead of saying that, or could you ever ask the person when they say something rude to you, could you ever say to them, and you feel the dart go in, and you're like, whoa, why is this person so mean to me? And sometimes do you have a chance to say to them, I'm just wondering what your motivation is in what you just said to me. Because it's somebody, like, what are you motivated to say something mean to somebody? What motivates you to do that? But it stops the person where you're not angry necessarily. It's immediately we have a negative reaction. Don't say that how could you? And then they get dug into their area. But what if you say to somebody, wow, that's kind of a little stunning for me. I'm wondering what's the cause, what motivates you to say something like that? Can you tell me? Because I think then they realize, like, it does motivate them. Misery in their minds motivates them. Unhappiness in their mind motivates them. Do they need to be vomiting that out on you? No, but it stops people usually in their tracks if you ask them something, genuinely ask them. Sometimes we can try stuff like that. It's difficult. It takes training. We train ourselves like that. Yes?
I go back to the attachment subject. Do you think attachments, any kind of attachments, are roadblocks in the way to enlightenment?
Absolutely.
So ideally we should get rid of all attachments.
Attachment, they say, is one of the three poisonous states of mind. Confusion or ignorance, and everything's rooted in that. And then second poison is attachment, desire, and the other one is hatred and anger. Those are the 3 poisonous states of mind, 3 root delusions that make up the 3 of the 6 root delusions. So yeah, we would be trying to get rid of attachment.
All kinds.
Any kind of attachment.
Persons, things, animals.
Yeah. Now, it doesn't mean that you have, it doesn't mean you don't have relationships with people. And it doesn't mean that you're cold and unfeeling. I think you're more feeling without attachment. I think you're more feeling, and you're certainly more aware and interested in what their experience is. Attachment gets in the way of that. So you're definitely freer to be. So it's not like you're an indifferent and, no, I'm not supposed to have any attachment, so I don't really care about you. No, it's not like that at all. It's the big heart. I really care about you. That's why I battled back my attachment. My attachment was more about me, what I wanted, but now I've got more space to be interested in you. More harmony, generally, like that.
Because I want you to be happy.
Because I want you to be happy. Yeah. So be cautious about that, because people ask me and say, oh, well, I shouldn't have any relationships and I shouldn't even see my family because I'm so attached. No, this is how we have to do the work. I'm not saying that at all. These people are loving and they're going to be in your life, and it's wonderful they're in your life. How do you want to go through it with them? More positively. We want to have fun with the people we love. We want to have a good time. We want to have harmony when we're together. And a lot of families don't, and then you have to look. So I'm not blaming, when you get together with your family, it's not like, well, you don't know how to communicate, and you don't know how to communicate, and it's me and my mind. And I'll show up. Like, I noticed the dynamic with my family when I moved back like 10 years ago, and I was kind of like, this is different. It's a different way of communicating. And I could kind of acknowledge and kind of feel all my friends from California being like, oh my God, these people don't know how to communicate. Like, I could see that, but I wasn't going to approach from there. It was just like, okay, let me take a deep breath here. And it took some years to kind of slowly discuss with people, create these other relationships with people, but in my family, closer link, till somebody was open to hearing when I said, well, when you guys say that, then we don't feel safe. And then they were like, oh, okay. Like, then they were able to get it, to see, like that, or we were able to rebalance somehow of what was helpful for them to hear, like that. Does that make sense? So it's a process. It's a process, yes.
What if something is given to you out of love from somebody that gave you something from their heart, and you become attached to that object, like a wedding ring, or a card that someone gave you with heartfelt words that you don't want to let go of, a momentous type thing.
Yeah.
Is it okay to be attached to those things?
I think to some degree people keep some things. I don't think that's a major problem. It's more is it taking over your life and your mind and. But sure, we keep some mementos that make us happy. Again, this is Marie Kondo's thing. Does it spark joy? She doesn't get into what you're getting rid of. She gets into what you're keeping. It's a very different mindset. Because we have a thing, I got to get rid of. What are you keeping? And if you're keeping something, you have a sense, does it really make you happy? And you have some other things where you go, I remember that, but I don't really need it. But you have some things you go, I love this. Then keep it. So it's a really different mindset. But you don't want your stuff being like, oh, I have so much stuff. There's no joy. But there is some stuff that makes joy, and I think it's great. But here's another thing about stuff. It's very interesting. Let's say somebody gives you something. And you like it, you don't like it, it doesn't matter. But somebody gives you something, they have attachment to you using it. They want to see you wearing it or using it. Oh, you didn't like the bracelet I gave you? I never see you wear it. When you give a gift, that's it. It's over. It's over. I give gifts just if it makes somebody happy. I don't have a thing of like, you need to wear it or... And the person I learned regifting from, the king of regifting,
Over here, this side.
is my teacher, Lama Zopa Rinpoche. He's the king of regifting. You know how many things Rinpoche gets? But Rinpoche loves to practice generosity. So you don't need to keep the thing. If it serves somebody else better, makes them happy, hey, what what's the problem? You know, you have to be somewhat skillful if you're giving something somebody just gave you and they see it. Like, you might have to be skillful. He's very skillful, and it was so funny. Years ago, a friend of mine gave Rinpoche her favorite ring. It was a huge thing for her. She was so attached to it. She came out of the meeting, she's like, I just gave Rinpoche my favorite ring. So another friend went in and he gave it to this other friend. And she knew it was the other friend, so she gave it back to her. So, you know, it's interesting how things go around, and so it is interesting too. Now here's another thing about the things somebody gave you, an object, let's say. They give you an object as a gift, but I find the sooner I unload it, the less it starts weighing. Like when it starts sitting in your house for a while, and then it's this, and it's over there in the kitchen, it starts creating an entity unto itself. And my sister says this with ticket stubs, cards, certain things, they start taking up more space in your life and your mind because you now had it for 2 months. So be skillful about that too. The less I have it, or I keep it in a box, I'm like, then I know I can. I had a thing one year, a couple of years, you know, people are always like, what do you give nuns? You know, socks. For a couple of years it was socks and soap. That's what everybody gave me. It's really hard to figure out, what can you give a nun, right? We don't really need anything. But I went through this couple of years where everyone was giving me beautiful, they were beautiful, lovely cups that had the tea strainer in it with the lid. You know how many of those I got? They were all of them I wanted to keep. They were all functional and different and beautiful. Not possible. And I don't even really live anywhere. I'm at my dad's, but it's like could be sold anytime. You know, it's always like I'm not quite in my own space, that as if there is something like your own space. Even that doesn't exist. You can hold that up in your mind. So I, you know, gave them away. You know, I slowly gave some of them to people. Some of them I kept, but some, I think most of them I gave away, and people were really happy with them. Oh, this is great. I can use the loose tea, and you know, so it's so interesting. But the longer they stuck around, then I was like, suddenly they were mine. Took on a different entity. So it's something you can think about with your stuff or when you get stuff.
So it's like functional. If it's functional and it's something you can use and it's not just going to sit there and take up space, then like your sweater you gave away, that was so functional for you. And I was just wondering why you would give that away when it was something that was useful.
I mean, it depends. Some people are into function. Like I know some people, when you give them a gift, it has to be practical or they're going to give it away. They don't have any. And I know people that love, and I don't know what the right word is, but dust collectors. Like they love having all these little things around their space. That stuff makes me crazy. Like when I'm just always like, oh, you know, it's like more to clean and more. But some people really like that. It doesn't need to be useful for them. So everybody's a little different. But for me, it was this thing about something, I just felt like at that time it was time to let go of the sweater. And he was cold, and I'm like, I think I can do this, and it made me happy.
Yeah.
I could always get another sweater. I never got another sweater like that. But that's the thing, you know, it's like, so what? Just a sweater. It wasn't, you know, certainly wasn't any expensive thing that I'd spent all this money on, or that my grandmother had knit for me, or like that. It was so interesting, too, when somebody makes you something. So I had my grandmother and my aunt, both were amazing sewers, knitters. And my aunt, when I was a kid, or when I was like a teenager, made me this beautiful sweater, lime green, whatever, Fair Isle style sweater. Spent a lot of time. I never wore it, and I don't even think I appreciated it. Just not in the space to. So I found it. I was cleaning out stuff this past year, and I found the sweater, and I thought, it's a beautiful sweater. And one of her granddaughters lives like a few hours from me, and I had been. I don't see her, but I was on touch with her on Facebook or something, and I'm like, maybe she would want it for her kids. And it's her grandmother made it, and she was delighted. I mailed it out to her. She was so happy to get it, because it's not a color I would wear anyway. And then I found in another drawer a maroon one. My aunt, so I kept that one. Like it was amazing. Like I never knew about this other sweater. I'm like, it's my color, you know. So I wear that now. So you know, I wear that occasionally if I need something warmer. Very sweet. So yeah, so just be skillful about if you're saying, but it's useful. How many tea strainer cups are useful? Do you have space for them? Is it overflowing? And I do have friends where when they get a new sweatshirt, an old sweatshirt has to go out. That's their rule, is they're not going to have any more of what they need. And Yeah, so, and also some of the countries I've lived in with people are so poor, so, you see they've got like 2 shirts, you know, I mean, when they wash one, they wear the other one, and like it really humbles you, you're kinda like, that's all you have? You know, it's like, yep, something like that, so, we try our best, right? So, we are out of time, is there one more question?
Yes. So talking about attachments and sometimes relationships. So if instead of having an attachment, it's like a worry about you being the provider of a house. And usually the relationships get into trouble when the income gets not to be enough. And so you are not attached to the money, but you are worried about the amount of money that you are paying at home. So how, if it's a process like you mentioned, okay, so the person comes and like visualize it. So in this case, it's not a person, and it's an object, like it is money. So how could we approach that situation?
I mean, on that one, it's actually quite practical because, and money's like anything else, it's just if we place more importance on it. I do know some really poor people that are really happy and they have a great relationship, and money isn't their driving force. So you have to kind of also see what value does money have in your life, and do you have a healthy relationship with money, which you can have if you're rich or poor, doesn't matter. So now I know money's important in our world, there's no question. You need money to live on, but basically, all you can do on one level is what are the options is you do the best you can do to provide the funds, right? So you make sure that you have a decent job, a reasonable job. Do you need to get more education? Do you have the proper education? And you slowly go along to make sure that you can maintain a good job that is going to bring enough money in to provide for your family. That's just realistic, right? That's not necessarily about attachment or not, but the attachment would be where if you're struggling in the job and you're not quite making enough, I've seen people do it, do you have a clear budget with your family and with your partner that they honor and they understand and they're working with you on it? Like I've seen families where one of the partners is not bringing in that much, but the other partner is spending, like, that's not gonna work, right? And then I do know people that work together, they don't have much money, but they're both very conscious of, you know, they know, like, he's the one that provides this income, she's got a little income on the side, but she's super in finding sales and buying bulk food and making a lot of food from scratch because she knows then they'll make it and they won't be struggling. They can do it. So that takes a commitment from both of them, as well as letting their kids know, this is what we can provide, this stuff. My parents did that with me when we got to be of working age, and even 11, 12 years old, I was babysitting. And I liked doing it because I saw my sister do it. And then she had some spending money, and that was, you know, it was like, so we had this happen, but we got to this age where they provided everything we needed. And if I wanted that extra pair of jeans, they're like, get a job, you know? And I did. And it taught me the value of how much a pair of jeans cost and how long I wanted to take them and how much money. So that can be helpful too. And maybe everybody has chores in the house to help out if you both got full-time jobs or something like that. So it's a whole process of based in reality. Does it sound reasonable, possible? Like that. Okay. So thank you. I want to thank you so much for coming. I'm sorry we're out of time, but I am back tomorrow night. And it feels so short, this whole visit. And then I'm in Miami giving some talks. And but I want to thank you so much for coming. I really appreciated your interest. And I'd like to dedicate, if there's any merit or positive energy we've created from this time, please let's invest it in our being able to have wonderful, wonderful relationships that are based in unconditional love. It doesn't mean we won't get off balance occasionally. We are humans and we make mistakes, that's normal. But we can be accepting, forgiving, spacious, and can we build upon that that will help us move along this path to becoming fully realized, as then we're in a position where we can unlimitedly benefit all living beings. I'd like to dedicate also to all the beings on the planet who are suffering through struggle and immense pain and things. Maybe they be relieved of that immediately and only know ultimate happiness. Thank you very much. And if you're interested, I have a website with some more teachings and things. If you're interested in the Laudo, there's some cards up here if you'd like. And if you're interested in the Laudo pilgrimage, there's some information to this remote retreat center in Nepal. And some people ask if I sometimes do private consultation with people, even on Skype, so if that's something you need help with on practice level things or occasional life things, I do that as well. You can contact me like that.
And I just wanted to let everybody know if this is your last time you'll be here, if you won't be able to make it tomorrow and you would like to offer Venerable Amy a kanto, you may do so now. Okay, thank you.
And tomorrow, what's the program?
It's 7 to 9, Riding the Wave, Coping with Anxiety and Depression.
Coping with anxiety and depression, so it's kind of taking this stuff a little further, but more specifically looking at anxiety and depression issues like that, other delusions.